Would you just give your house key to criminals? Having your personal information on the internet is like giving a thief the key to your home. They can take everything that's valuable to you anytime. But JoinDeleteMe.com can help you protect yourself. Online data brokers compile information about you and sell it to people who could ruin your life. But JoinDeleteMe.com scours the web, removes the personal information you don't want seen, and reduces the risk of data brokers, scammers, identity thieves, even political enemies getting personal information that could hurt you, your family, or your reputation. You'll get regular reports detailing what they find and remove. And JoinDeleteMe.com isn't just AI. They have real people working to keep your data safe. Keep your private life private with JoinDeleteMe.com. Sign up today and get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to JoinDeleteMe.com/protect. Go to JoinDeleteMe.com/protect. That's JoinDeleteMe.com/PROTECT.
Erstklassisch mit Mischke, der musikalische Podcast des Hamburger Abendblatts.
Schönen guten Tag zu einer neuen Folge von Erstklassisch mit Mischke. Wir haben Frühsommer, Frühling 2021, Corona ist noch da, ganz überraschend. Ich bin diesmal nicht in meinem Arbeitszimmer, sondern bei uns in der Redaktion, in der menschenleeren Redaktion. Mein Gegenüber auf weiter sichere Entfernung ist ein Geiger, mit dem ich schon sehr lange sprechen wollte, der auch hin und wieder mal in Hamburg war, schon, aber bislang hat es nicht geklappt. Jetzt hat es hingehauen, er ist heute bei einem NDR-Radiokonzert zu Gast als Geiger und als Dirigent. Es ist Leonidas Kavakos. Ich hoffe, ich habe den Namen richtig ausgesprochen. But first of all, thank you very much, Leonidas Kavakos, for coming. I hope I pronounced your name right. Is it Kavakos or Kavakos? I have no idea.
It is Kavakos.
Kavakos, okay. So we cleared.
That's no problem. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you know that, but I always start with an easy question or a difficult one. What would you prefer? Which one?
Oh, up to you.
Okay, so we'll take the easy then. How important is getting applause at the end of a concert for you as an artist? Because maybe the concert didn't work out as you expected, as you planned, as you hoped, and you're not satisfied, but the audience is just clapping as if everything was perfect.
Well, clapping after the performance is important, but it is less important than having the audience during the performance there. What I mean by that is that the concert, in the way it happens in our times, it's such a procedure where the audience arriving in the hall and expecting the concert to start and hear the music creates already a certain kind of energy level which is quite high, and it is very at the same time inspiring and challenging for the artists. So that's why, for instance, you as an artist, one knows that what happens in a performance you can never reach in a rehearsal, because exactly it's not that you play better or worse, but it's just different because of that energy exactly. Mm-hmm. Therefore, for me it is very, very important, and I'm sure for most of artists, the presence of audience in the hall during the performance. The clapping is something that, depending on the music that one plays, it could even be disturbing, if I may say, in the sense that, you know, if you have a work of music that ends very softly in silence, and that magic of that silence is really, really great to keep after the performance, and even sometimes to just go away with just the sound of the music instead of the clap, you know, and then the sound that it makes in the hall. Of course, the psychological side of it is also important, and therefore the clapping is something that is always welcome, because it is also for the audience it's like a form of exhale. That means after like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes of holding our breath and receiving all the music, now we can finally relax a bit more. And for us on stage, it is, let's say, expression of gratitude from the audience for what we have created. But for me, the most important thing and the most magical thing that happens in a concert hall during a live performance is this communion, the unconditional communion between audience and musicians, artists on stage. Everybody there is communes through this great art of music, which of course in a concert hall it's obviously it's a let's say what you call a symphony, which means many voices together, but actually I think it is something even more, because what is there that makes music have this effect is not just the sound, is what's behind it. And what's behind it is, first of all, the inspiration of the composer with the different themes. Then there is the organization of the themes, the structure. And the structure happens in rhythm and in harmony, which are elements that are existential in life, whether you are in a concert hall or outside a concert hall. So therefore, this message hits much deeper than just the ears. And that's what is the great thing that one can experience in combination with that energy that I just mentioned before during a live performance. And this is what makes, I think, a live performance something that is unique.
So if this communion with the audience is so important for you, how was your last year? How did you manage to get along? Many artists I talked to were desperate. Others were sort of amazed how good they could adapt and find rest and get new energy. But most of them were just desperate, not knowing what to do with themselves and how to cope with this situation of being not able to play and not getting in front of an audience.
Well, for me, it was a bit of both, in the sense that at the beginning, it was, of course, like for the rest of the world, a big shock, right? Because I remember my last concerts were in March were in New York at Carnegie Hall. We had a series of concerts that week with Emmanuel Axe and the Yo-Yo Ma. We had the trio, and we had 3 concerts there, and they were sold out. And the last concert, already the first concert was full of people. The second concert, in the middle of the week, was practically full, but you could see some empty seats. The last concert, there were quite a few empty seats in the hall, although the concert was sold out. And going around, you could feel that people were getting really worried about what's going on, scared, not feeling safe, and so on, and keeping, at home. And so it was already a build-up, very strange build-up of an atmosphere that was not comfortable for anybody. And then, so after that, there was the closure of the concert halls, and I had to go back home. And it took me about 1.5, 2 months to understand what's going on, in the sense, not to understand, of course, one understand what's going on, but to understand internally that now there is a situation where things are kind of keep being cancelled, and live activity keeps being suppressed. People have to be limited, people have to be careful, people have to be afraid, people have to be worried. Everybody has to do just the essential things, which I don't really agree that it's only eating and pharmacy. We can talk about this later on. But there was this kind of restriction, and that caused a very, so to say, big upset for me. I did not touch my violin for about a month and a half. I had no, how can I say, I had no appetite for it. I didn't feel like playing, just because of hearing everybody dying every day, so many people here and there. There was this incredible situation with Italy, if you remember, so many people dying every day, ridiculous. It's impossible to believe that this was happening. So in all this depression, I just could not, even though normally one finds through the music, I had to take a bit of time. Then finally, I did read books, but I did not have any kind of wish to play. Then finally, I thought, okay, but this looks like it's going to go on for some time, and we have to deal with this. This is something that we have to deal with. And after the difficult period of 1.5 months, 2 months, trying to adapt to the fact that everything that had been planned was being cancelled, and nobody knew what was going to happen. So you did not know whether you should prepare, you shouldn't prepare. Is the concert going to happen? How is it going to happen? How am I going to travel? How can I be safe? It was this paradox that while everything was closed, still the flights were operating normally. So nobody could understand what on earth is going on. So in all this mess, I thought, okay, one has to somehow find again the center. And the center, of course, for me was and is the music. And therefore, I started again playing at home, practicing and trying to focus on certain things. And I found my rhythm somehow again. And then, of course, came the summer, and very few performances happened that happened to be outdoors. And that was, again, very difficult. And then, people thought, unfortunately, that we are over it. And then, of course, the fall came back. Again, the same situation. We have performances being cancelled and so on. It has been a very difficult time altogether. And it has been difficult mentally, spiritually, but also practically, professionally, for everybody. Because we plan so much in advance, and then you're looking forward to the things that are coming up, and then all of a sudden, you're seeing the whole thing kind of collapse, and all of a sudden there is nothing happening, and you still have to keep going, because the playing the music is like a sports. You have to train. If you don't train, you lose it, and it's very, very difficult mentally and psychologically to do so. So one needs to find a very very good and fertile source of energy and inspiration in order to be able to continue. And so this is what happened. Then in the fall, I had, imagine, between March and December, I played 5 times only. And then, of course, what is very difficult is that you are in this kind of situation where you're doing nothing, and all of a sudden there is one performance. and it's like, okay, then you try to get back into some kind of concentration and focus and rhythm, and then you do that performance, you rehearse for 2-3 days, do the performance, and then again, nothing for 2 months. This is also extremely difficult.
Do you think that you've become a better musician now because of this period of uncertainty, or are you not as good as you used to be? And
no, I feel that how one plays, besides the technical side, is very much a distillation of knowledge, experience, life, talent, of course, research, questioning, and all these elements that somehow contribute to a result. And I think that result cannot be challenged, because we grow even with a bad experience in life. The bad experiences in life are very important, and they are equally creative. Even though they are destructive, they are also creative. We know it's like the phoenix effect. You have the ashes, and then the phoenix come back from the ashes. So we are who we are, and we have to go on. And the fact that we went, and we still are going through something that nobody could even imagine a year and a half ago, that doesn't mean that it's going to make us better or worse. I think we are still keeping being who we are. I think as time goes, one becomes better, in fact, no matter what the experiences are. Because also what the purpose is of the arts is not my career. The purpose of the arts is that I become, in the end, a better and more complete person myself as well, together with my audiences and whoever listens to music or to any form of art. So that does not stop. That stops only if one has, other problems, like falls into depression, falls into these kind of things. But then, of course, one can be challenged. But I don't think I can say that I had faced this kind of situation.
Okay. I am quite curious about your beginnings, because I found that your father played violin as well. Your mother played piano. You grew up in Athens. So tell me, what was young Leonidas like? Were you always practicing? Were you always on the soccer field? How did the idea come up to become a musician? And what was your first years like, and your way into being a professional musician? I found nearly nothing about that.
Yeah, well, it's the way it happened was quite interesting, but also very natural, in the sense that both my parents were musicians, as you said. My father played the piano. My father played the violin. My mother played the piano. That's how they met. They met in the conservatory when they were studying.
Oh, romantic.
By playing together, yes. And so, in the house, at home, we had music everywhere. So my father was practicing, and he was playing at the orchestra there. So he had weekly the concerts to which I was going. I could hear him practice. My mother was a practice freak. She was practicing as much as she could, and you could hear, of course, when I was born and my brother later, she could not have so much time, but from the way she was practicing, which I still have in my ears, you could hear that this is someone who was a maniac with practicing, really. And later on I found out that this was the case also when she was studying, where she was always the last person in the conservatory studying in the practice room, and the director would go and just turn off the light and send her out. Says, now you go home, leave, this is over, finished. And so I had this very much in my life already from the very beginning. And when I started crawling, and my parents noticed that there were places when they were practicing certain pieces that I would stop what I was doing and a little before and go there to listen to what they are playing. And then after this spot, then I would go away again, which means they realized that I have a musical ear, because I could distinct immediately already from before that there was a place that was coming that I liked, and it was always the same, and I would go and listen. So they thought, oh, this guy here maybe can listen to music in a different way. And then, so with this, I don't want to make it too long, then I write at the age of 5 as a Christmas present a little violin. And I was absolutely ecstatic with it. I took it to bed with me. I had it the whole day. Whatever I was doing, violin was next to me. And the smart thing for my parents was that they did not force me to start studying immediately. So they let me have the violin for about a year with me, part of my life. And I was, of course, having a bow and putting the bow on the string and making noise, imitating rhythmical patterns from my father's practicing. But that was it. And then slowly, after a year, then we started, having lessons and trying to understand how to really do it, and that was, of course, not easy. But in a way, it came always naturally, and then, I was also very lucky to have a teacher who was an amazing pedagogue above everything else, because my father was quite strict, in fact, and because he knew that he could see I was talented, he could see I could hear well, he could see that I had what you call a musical understanding, instinct, and of course he, having learned in a totally different way, because he started as a folk musician, and the folk musicians learned by the ear. So the teacher comes at home, plays the tune, or one or two tunes, helps you find the notes, and he goes away, there is no music, and you have to remember, and with the ear you have to find the tunes and learn how to play them. So my way of learning was totally different from his. and of course much more disciplined. So he was quite strict, and I had my father who was strict and absolute, and my teacher who was absolute also, but not strict, and let me breathe a little. And that combination helped me get through the first years, which are very difficult for a string instrument, for every child, because with the piano you just push down the key and already you have the note. So even you have a result. For the string instrument, you cannot have a result. You have to already master the first result. And as you know, if you are 5 or 6 years old, there is no patience for such kind of thing. If something works, fine. If it doesn't work, you throw it away. You go on to the next thing that works. So it makes it very difficult to start a string instrument. So therefore, it was very important for me to have that teacher who would understand and help me, support me through this thing, and then would be a bit more patient with me than my father. So like this, I grew up, and slowly things, took their way. And of course, I also wanted to spend more time doing other things, but I was practicing. I was not forced to practice like in an obsessive way, no. But I was forced to have discipline in my practice. That means every day I had to do at least 1.5 hours of practice, and be serious about it before I could do anything else. Before I could go out and play, Then at that time in Athens, still there was the neighborhoods where the children were playing out on the street. It was not like nowadays. They have too many cars, traffic, and so on. It was much more relaxed. And but before I could do any of this, I had to always make sure that I had practiced, and it was very disciplined way of learning the violin, and that of course is something that helped a lot.
Was there a point in time when your father realized, oops, my son might be a better musician than I am? I mean, you're different if he's playing folk music.
Well, then he played classical as well.
Okay, then he played classical, but nevertheless, maybe there was a point when he realized, my son is better or will be better than I have ever been or I could ever be. And was that complicated for him, or could he accept it and say, I'm happy for you, play, you're better than me, okay, we're done?
Nothing made him happier. Nothing made him happier. It was amazing. In that way, he was absolutely amazing. And I remember I was like 15 or something, 16, 15 probably, because it was before I had my diploma. And I was practicing, I remember Rondo Capriccioso, which is a piece by Saint-Saëns, virtuosic piece. And the last page is quite a virtuosic page with lots of fast notes. And I was listening, of course, they made me listen to all the great violinists of the time and so on. And that time I was listening to Grimmio, who was a great, Arthur Grimmio, a great, wonderful Belgian violinist, one of the most beautiful sounds ever. And the last page, he was playing quite fast, but I could do it much, much faster, much faster. So I called him. I said, Dad, come. I want to show you something. He says, okay. So I will play this with Grimmio, the last page. I said, okay. So I start, first 2-3 bars. I said, you want me to really do it now, how I can do it? What do you mean? And then I start accelerating. I will never forget his face. His face was like, he did not know, he was shining. He wanted to scream, but of course he did not want to overdo it. But at the same time, I remember he was so impressed. Then he called his brother to come. His brother was living right under us, and he called. And he also played. His brother played only folk music. And he called him. He said, you have to come and hear this. Come. You come upstairs now and listen to this. What he's doing. He's doing something crazy. And so we did again. So he was so happy. He could not be more happy. And he was very critical always. Because he had, as a folk musician, he used to play also in weddings, in clubs, in bars, everywhere. And there you have to be ready to play anything people ask you, because that's how they give you the money.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't practice this," or "I'm sorry, I don't know that." Then they send you away, and to be able to play many different styles, it's something that you need to have an amazing judgment about music and about style, and he had that. Therefore, he was very critical. But at the same time, nothing made him happier than he came with me to my first international competition in Sibelius in Helsinki in Finland. He came with me to all the competitions I did. Nothing was making him.
And he told every juror, "That's my son. That's my son."
No, he did not. He did not. But no, because you asked, I have to say that this was something that there was never even a trace of thinking of competition. For him, it was the best thing that could happen in his life.
Did you ever play on weddings like he did?
No.
No.
Actually, I did, but I did with a friend a string quartet.
I see.
Yeah, but
But
not
as
for
a-
money, not for and not folk music. Unfortunately, I asked him so many times until late to teach me how to do it, and he didn't.
Huh.
Yeah.
If you should explain to me what the sound of a violin is like, how would you explain the sound that a violin makes? What's it for you? Is it like a human voice? Is it like, I don't know, the voice of God, the voice of nature? Is it just an abstract means of getting music heard? How would you explain?
With the exception of the last thing that you said, all the other things. With the exception of the high register, of the very high register of the violin, the rest is very close, or should be very close, to the human voice. In terms of, what is the miraculous thing about it is that the wood produces that same kind of effect on the sound that the breathing produces for the voice. So this you hear as if, for instance, you put the bow very lightly on the string. Before it starts making any kind of note, you will hear that noise. That noise of the wood is, and so the sound starts from there. So that means, in a way, one should be aware of that. And a great violin has color even in that. A great instrument, I mean. And so it is very much like that. The problem with the string instruments is that we don't have the letters. So the easy, so to say, side of the singing is that, of course, you always have a text, which means that there is already an idea of what you're going to sing. There's a context. But at the same time, within the text, you have the words that have the vowels and the consonants. And already the vowels and the consonants, they are colors. And they are articulations. With a string instrument, you don't have that. And yet one has to find ways to create that. How do you articulate letter T or letter K? Or that's easier. How do you articulate letter M or letter R? How do you do this? That's very difficult. And therefore, what happens is, and it's extremely important, is the right hand technique, the bow technique. That's how you produce the, so to say, the imaginative consonants or vowels. And that has to do with a combination of pressure and speed, with a combination of during the note, but a combination of pressure and speed also at the beginning of the note, as you change the bow. All these things are very, very important. And if one finds a way to combine all this, then you have, I think, a magical sound. And in a way, I think that many times what is so great about it is that there is no text. So the listener is much freer to travel with that sound anywhere they choose to. Rather than, knowing that now we're talking about this, now we're talking about that, and now there's this. There is nothing that we're talking about. we are creating a sound, we are imagining a situation. Maybe I imagine a situation that an audience does not imagine the same situation while I'm playing, but they imagine something else. That's absolutely fine, as long as they imagine something. And that is the mission of the performer on stage, to help the listener travel. Travel in places that we have not talked about before, or nobody has defined, or we are going to travel there. No. We are free to, with our minds, even if we close the eyes, just to meditate with the music. And then create our own trip, journey, whether it's a journey of colors. Other people, there's people, even composers, that in the notes they would see colors. Other people have images. Other people have a certain kind of psychological situation that they experience during a performance. All this is wonderful, and all this is possible, and all this should be, because that's exactly what the arts are doing. But they are offering that ticket to a journey that there is no obligations, no limits, and practically almost no margins, while there is a very specific text. This is a great thing. And of course, having said that, that's why I believe that what we have experienced, if I may say, the last year with the closure of the concert halls is something that I think humanity should not be proud of. Because the way I see it, the two greatest achievements of human beings is science and arts. Why? Because with science, not only we help the everyday life, but through the everyday life, and by researching more and more, we are able to understand the universe. And you see that, for instance, there are many scientists talking about the fact that microcosmos and macrocosmos are practically the same thing. And what is a law in microcosmos is a law also in macrocosmos. And by getting to know the universe better, we get to know ourselves better. And this is a science. And the arts is also, I think, the how you call this, the traces of humanity's journey towards deity. And this is why these great achievements of the arts are there, and they are still sending light no matter how many years go by, and no matter how the modern times change, and they're still there and sending light. And for me, in this situation, what we have been experiencing the last year, it became very obvious what we already knew and have been talking about, the fact that the governments, they are not, the people who are in power, they are not really aware of the importance of the arts.
Where did you stay during the last year? I think you're living in Switzerland?
Yes.
Okay.
I was there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get in touch with your home country during these last months? What was it like in Greece then? I mean,
yeah, it's the same situation.
Just the same.
Horrible. Greece had a very strict lockdowns. You even had to send an SMS to go out of your house. You couldn't go out without an SMS. Very strict lockdown. And it worked extremely well until June, because we had really low numbers. Then they lost the control again with the second wave. But it was like this everywhere. Okay. Everywhere the arts were silenced, and I feel what happened with that shows the fact that we are really not aware still of what actually an artist, a great artist, and I'm not talking about artists like myself now, but these are like Beethoven, like Mozart, let's talk about music, like Schubert, like Brahms, like even in the 20th century, all the great masters, Stravinsky, Shostakovich, Bartók, all these great minds, what they have given us, what they have achieved. And what they have achieved is exactly what I tried to describe before, is that with their works, we have the possibility to as listeners and as players, to travel. They offer us this exit to this upper sphere of thoughts, ideas, existence. And this is very much something that should have helped very much during this time. During this time, this is exactly what people needed when they are locked and their lives is suppressed and everything is restricted. You need somewhere to be able to let yourself a bit more free. And nobody realized, unfortunately, the fact that a live concert, a live performance, where actually the danger is very small, because the people in the concert hall, they enter in discipline, in order, they sit down, they wear their masks, they don't speak, they don't move, and then again, once the performance is over, they go out. I'm not saying we should have full concert halls, but at least keep it happening. Let's make 500 people every day happy. Let's offer them a way out of all this depression. And instead of that, we just treated the arts as another professional side of life. And unfortunately, artists have to suffer as all the rest of the world has to suffer. And I think there is a big mistake, because we have ignored that second pillar and its role. The role of the arts is primarily therapeutic. This comes already from ancient Greece, where the theaters that we know today, and we visit the great ancient theaters with these incredible acoustics, most of them, they were parts of sanctuaries. And where the patients, as part of healing, they had to go and experience also the arts, the theater, the music, the dance, all this. Because why? Not because they had to be entertained, which is a totally wrong word, but because the arts have this exact role in life. They are there to heal the mind and the soul and to help us all become better. And in these times, unfortunately, all the leaderships, with very few exceptions, showed absolutely very narrow mind in terms of taking horizontal measures and not really acknowledging what is the role of each and every thing. So that means biologically we were protected. How? Supermarkets open, pharmacies open, and now with the vaccines and the medicines. Mentally, spiritually, we were not protected at all. We were just left on our own with, thank God, the technology we have, but that has nothing to do with the real thing. And we were left like this, and okay, whoever manages, good. Whoever doesn't manage, we're sorry, but this is a horrible thing that happened, and there's nothing one can do. Well, I'm sorry. I think there could be things done, and I'm really sorry that I don't think we can be proud about what happened.
Slight change of topic, but we're still in the same area. If you're, I'm not quite sure, but I think you're playing on Stradivari. Okay,
Yep.
If you're playing on Stradivari or a Guarneri or some sort of instrument in that league, it's pretty impossible to say, oh, I'm sorry, I just had a bad day. Because if the instrument is that good, there's hardly any excuse for a bad performance, because you can't if you're a piano player, you can always blame the piano and say, oh, this piano I'm supposed to play on, I don't know, it's just mediocre. I'm sorry, I could have done better, but the piano is as it is. But if you're playing on such a brilliant instrument, you have no excuse of saying, sorry.
I don't necessarily agree with you.
Really? Okay.
And I will tell you why. The Stradivari violins, they are fantastic for several reasons. The main reason they are first of all, they are incredible works of art as a structure. The making of this instrument is already incredible. You have to imagine that at the time Stradivari died in 34, Mozart was born in 56. That's 20 years before Mozart was born. Stradivari was already 90 years old. He died at the age of 94. we know where music life was at that time, what a concerto meant, what a sonata meant. We knew that it was totally different than it is today. He built instruments that were not needed in his time, because there was no, the biggest ensemble was what, 20, 25 people maximum. The biggest room they played in, nothing to do with these concert halls we have today. The compositions were absolutely not challenging the main voice. There was no need for what he created, yet it was prophetic. Because imagine where we would be today if, for instance, Brahms or Beethoven or Bartók or Shostakovich or Stravinsky would have been able to write the concertos they wrote if the violin as an instrument did not have the sound that Stradivari set as a standard. No, they would have never been, because you could have never been able to hear the violin over an orchestra of that size and with the orchestration such as it is in these works. No way. So he was already ahead of his time. That alone makes him one of the greatest geniuses ever. Then, the fact that he evolved within his life, and until the very last year, he's changing things. He's looking for something more and more and more all the time. That already shows a great artist, and that already shows a great knowledge of what he's looking for and trying to achieve it. So he has a vision and he's trying to achieve it. Then we have the beauty of the making, the perfection of the making, which is unsurpassable. We are today, 300 years later, and we're still copying these guys. It's incredible. It's like we have not gone forward, we are gone forward in a way that we can copy better these guys. But we have not invented anything more. That already says a lot about the violins as art objects. Now, besides that, the great thing about these violins, these art objects, is that they have a function. And the function is the production of sound. Now, because Stradivarius was famous already during his life, he was the only maker that was really famous and very wealthy during his life. He had a very big professional profile, huge commissions from all the big important noble families in Italy and so on. His instruments were always in the best hands. And therefore that means they were always played in the best way that it was possible to be played. Therefore they developed a sound that is the glorious sound that we know today. Mind you, there are letters back in the early 1800s which describe the sound of Stradivari violins a bit immature compared to Amati. Because these violins also were new at some point, the Stradivari violins were new, and they were also growing with the time. So we have arrived now 2.5 centuries later, and we have a sound that has a combination of volume, colors, spirituality, that you cannot find practically in a new violin. Even in the old violins of the same time, with the exception of Guarneri maybe, you cannot find it. So, and now comes the role of the violinist, who is supposed to make sound and produce, as you say, a concert with no excuse. What is a violin made of? The violin is made of wood that is cut off trees. The wood of the violin at its maximum thickness is about 4 millimeters. And that's not all over. That's for the back. The top, the maximum thickness is about 2.5 millimeters. And the sides, they are maximum 1.5 millimeter. We're talking about something that is so delicate. And what is fascinating is that you can see on the top, for instance, of the violin, there is the grains, there is the lines of the wood, right? And you can see, for instance, there are places where the lines within the wood are larger and the lines are narrower. What does this mean? That this is a summer and a winter, when the wood, because it's cold, closes up and the summer opens up. So result is that today, as there is winter and summer, and there is humid and dry, and there is very warm and very cold, the instrument is influenced by that. So that means when you leave today from here, and I go, let's say, tomorrow to play in south of Spain or in Greece, they have 29 degrees there. Today here we have 10. The instrument, when I'm going to open my case, and it's going to feel the air, can you imagine what it goes through?
But
and therefore, that has an effect on the response of the string. That means the instrument can be faster, the instrument can be slower in the way it reacts. You can have better clarity or worse clarity if it's more humid, if you are by the water. It's more or less clear. And all this means you have to change your playing, like from one day to the other. Now, a healthy instrument is less vulnerable to all this, but it still changes. And therefore, what happens is that the violin, even though it's much more perfect instrument, as I explained, than the piano, in the sense that, the piano is still manufactured in a factory. This could never happen with a violin. That would be really great. The violin also is very influenced. Even though it's great, it can sound. You can speak to many players that will tell you, I have a great Strad, but it does not like climate changes. It's very temperamental with the climate changes. I need to be there 2 days before, 3 days before, then the instrument starts. Otherwise, if I go day by day, it will just not react. So we have that too.
But I mean, I never played violin. I used to play clarinet, so I'm in a completely different ballpark. But I would be so afraid, I don't know for how much time, if I don't know when you got this instrument, I would be afraid for months to touch it wrong, to just, I might let it drop, I might break something because it's so. How bad is it for you? Or does it just become a part of your body and you don't care about anymore? Or was it just like, I don't know, you were too afraid to touch it for 2 weeks before you actually start to play and practice for the first time?
No, the thing is that as a violinist, when you have a violin like this, you cannot wait to touch it. It's just, you just want to be with it, and you want to play it, and you want to experience it. There is no time to wait. The thing, of course, is that it is an enormous responsibility to keep it in the great condition that you receive it, or let's say in the same condition that you receive it. Because as we said before, these violins are not replaceable. You cannot make them again. So if something happens to them, there's one less, and that's it. So they are precious, extremely precious, irreplaceable items. And as such, one has to treat them. Now, a violinist more or less should know how to treat well an instrument and how to be very careful. We are very careful. We check all the time that the conditions are not extreme for the instrument. The violin cases that are created now, they are much more protective for the instrument than 100 years ago, and so on. So all this is contributing to the well kept and the preservation of the instrument in the condition that it is guaranteeing its continuation in history, and that the next generation can find it, and also the next generation of players can enjoy it, and the next generation of audiences also can enjoy the sound in the hall. This is an ultimate responsibility, and fortunately, one has to say, there is cases where certain artists have, within their professional life, taken an instrument in a fantastic condition and left it in a horrible condition. This is unfortunately also something that has happened. Whether it is accident or whether it is just, it can happen so that, for instance, somebody sweats very much, and that sweat goes on the instrument, destroys the varnish, eats up the wood, and then if you do that for 25 years on the same instrument, the instrument cannot take it anymore. So
but you never had the situation where you nearly forgot that you had this violin at your side in the taxi, or
Thank God.
It's always glued to your body, more or less.
Thank God. This is a nightmare that we have to live with.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God no.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, and I hope that it will never happen, because I cannot imagine that there is anything worse that can happen than that. That one forgets an instrument. And it's human, it can happen. It's not like, you cannot say it's not allowed. It's human, it can happen, because we live in a way that is very stressful sometimes. We travel with these instruments. We can be late for our travel. We can be trying to catch a train or catch a plane or something and run and behave in a way that is not necessarily the best way for the instrument, even though it is in the case and well protected. And yes, one is possible to forget at some point, but this is very unlikely, and it is something that one has always in the mind when you have the violin with you.
Could you imagine being separated again, or is it just you and your violin? You're bound for life. You couldn't live without it, without this special instrument.
This specific instrument, I probably think will be my last instrument, although, one never knows. Because we are also artists, we grow, and we are looking all the time for something that is not necessarily better, but it could be different. So the great thing about the Stradivaris is that after a certain level, they are not better or worse. They are different. It's like human beings. So if, for instance, I decide that the sound I need to hear from myself has a different direction than the instrument that I have now gives me, then I will probably be looking for another instrument. But just only because this is a personal decision about the sound and nothing to do with the quality of the instrument, whether I like it anymore or I don't like it. It's just a question of fitting with what I try to do as a sound. But I feel that it will be very difficult for me to change instrument from now on. It will be very difficult.
Okay. I have no idea about Greek, but in German and in English we talk about playing music. Isn't this sort of strange? I don't know whether you play music in when you talk about it in Greek as well, but making music or performing a piece is so much work. Why are we talking about playing? Because playing is something completely different in a way. Playing the Berg violin concerto is hard work. Playing Tchaikovsky concerto is hard work. Playing Beethoven is even more hard work. So why are we talking about playing a piece?
It's a nice question. But I would first, before I try to explain to you, I will tell you one thing that I've read a book by a very wonderful scientist called Über, and he is a Canadian scientist, and he has written many books where he explains the creation of the universe and how the first steps are made, the critical steps, in order to arrive from the very simple forms of life into the more complicated forms of life. And there is one phrase that he says after one describing a very important step for the evolution. He says, "It's amazing. It seems like God is throwing the dice and he all the time gets double six." But this is how the world is created. He says, if we can describe how unlikely it was what happened, and yet it happens, and then again when it comes again the time that it has to happen something, again it happens in the same way, in the most unexpected way, and so on. Why I'm saying this? Because the playing should not be seen as a term that is, let's say, diminutive. So playing is all life is about. Life starts in a moment and goes in a moment.
Would you just give your house key to criminals? Having your personal information on the internet is like giving a thief the key to your home. They can take everything that's valuable to you anytime. But JoinDeleteMe.com can help you protect yourself. Online data brokers compile information about you and sell it to people who could ruin your life. But JoinDeleteMe.com scours the web, removes the personal information you don't want seen, and reduces the risk of data brokers, scammers, identity thieves, even political enemies getting personal information that could hurt you, your family, or your reputation. You'll get regular reports detailing what they find and remove. And JoinDeleteMe.com isn't just AI. They have real people working to keep your data safe. Keep your private life private with JoinDeleteMe.com. Sign up today and get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to JoinDeleteMe.com/protect. Go to JoinDeleteMe.com/protect. That's JoinDeleteMe.com/PROTECT.
And yes, we are inside the life for many years, but our many years is nothing compared to the actual time. We can have many experiences, but we know that there are other people that have much more experiences. There is, how can I say, there is this kind of irregularity that makes the whole life as a game. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about game in terms of gambling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. Even though Reeves uses that word with the dice is normally something that has to do with gambling. And it is this way. I'm not talking about gambling as we do it in the casino or whatever. Playing is a different thing. A child is playing. But at the time that the child is playing, a little baby is playing, at that time, the observation and the learning is enormous for the kid. So here we're saying, also in Greek, we say, I play violin.
Mm-hmm.
As we say in English, probably you say the same thing in German, and so on. I don't know how this has happened. But we don't say the game. The concert is not a game.
Mm.
So the noun of the verb, the corresponding noun, would be playing is a game. Like in football, I play football, and there's a football game. In music, it's not that. But in music, we do play. Because, I tell you why we do play. For instance, I will never play the same phrase the same way.
Mm. So, when you're working on stage, instead of playing, you're doing something wrong.
What do you mean by that?
When you're not playing on stage in a performance.
Yes.
Like in playing, when you're just working, working your way through a piece, you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely so. And what is really, that's every colleague will agree with me, I am sure, that we are never trying to do the same thing each night. If we have, for instance, let's say if you have, okay, tonight we have only one performance, but if we have 5 performances, 5 nights, they will be slightly different, all of them. Mm. We will never try to stick to, and even the funny thing is this, that with the energy of the audience, that's what I was referring at the beginning of our discussion, with the energy of the audience, which is different every night, even if you try to do the same thing, it's almost impossible. Mm. But mentally, one should never try to do the same thing, because that is already there. Is like you're trying to create, let's say, a horizontal line, a symmetrical line, but in terms of perfection. But we know that the symmetry and the perfection is based on asymmetric elements. Is a ratio that makes the symmetry. It's not the equality. So if we try to create an equality, that's not helping the symmetry. Even in the face, the human face, if you take the one side and you duplicate that and you make one person, and you take the other side and you make a copy and you put it again as one face, you will have 2 different faces. Mm. Within us, in Stradivari violins, when you look at the left side, he always puts the F hole a little differently than on the right side. It's almost like a human face. Hmm. And when you look at it, you have to really measure to see that actually, this F hole is a little lower or a little shorter or little. When you look at it, it doesn't bother you.
Mm-hmm.
It looks perfectly symmetric. So that's what we are trying to do also with the performance. So every time we're looking for this symmetry, but the symmetry is created of different elements locally. So it's not the same exactly thing. And this is the great thing about all the works of art. This is exactly what you see in the great sculptures, in the great, you go to the Parthenon in Greece and you see the columns and they look all perfect. You go measure them, each and every one is different.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful end. But since you mentioned the beginning of our conversation, I want to come back because you already had the tricky question, and I want to end now with an easy question, hopefully. What's typically Greece in you? How could anybody from Greece instantly recognize you as being Greek?
Well, I don't really know. I don't really know. I cannot answer this because, I come from a part of the world where all the Mediterranean people more or less have the same colors with me in the skin and the face and the hair. Of course, if I start talking immediately, you can realize that I come from Greece. Even if you don't know the language, you understand this is Greek. But otherwise, I would say, I don't know what is.
I would have hoped of an answer like I am a philosopher or something like that, because everybody in Greece is loving philosophy.
No, not really.
Not really.
Not
okay.
really. But this is different. You asked about me.
Yeah.
If you ask me about how I see Greece, for me Greece is not a geographical term. For me, Greece is a spiritual term because it has produced all this enormous amount of philosophy and knowledge, scientific knowledge, even contemporary scientific knowledge, has produced all the terminology. This is incredible, the fact that a Greek word can describe so precisely certain very difficult meanings. And when you look at music even, you say rhythm, rhythmos, harmony, harmonia, phrases, phrases, where can I, you say pulse, palmos, there are all these, then you go to medicine. I had yesterday the people who make the test in the orchestra tell me, I studied Greek when I was young. I studied ancient Greek and I loved it. Now I don't remember anything, but it helped me so much because then I also studied medicine, and all the terminology of medicine is Greek words, so I was so familiar with them. So you have this, you have in sports, athleticism, athletismos, gymnastics, gymnastiki. It's all there. And so the fact that the language, and it's not now, please don't take it wrong, I'm not talking as a Greek person here. The fact that the language has found a way to describe so many meanings, and even very complicated meanings, so precisely, is already a sign of an incredible achievement of human beings and incredible level of spirituality. And that is what, for me, Greece stands for. And unfortunately, in our time, we cannot be very proud of where we are, but it's the rest of the world the same. Unfortunately, we are going away from that. Unfortunately, the whole world is moving away from that kind of thing. We are becoming much more practical in the wrong sense, because practicality is very important too. But practicality is important when we know the dimensions of it. What we are as human beings, we are spiritual existences. And we must be looking, we need to be looking for what's up there and how we can approach what is up there. And not trying to bring what's up there down here in order to make it our own. This is the quintessence of the Greek philosophy, that you actually ask the questions, you don't give the answers. Because when you ask the question, that means you are aware of where you are and what is the situation, what is the reality. And it's not necessary that you will have answers. As Plato says in his Timaeus, which is one of the most beautiful dialogues and important dialogues for people to be aware of, he says they discuss the creation of the universe. And he says there are things that are going to be very obviously explained because we know them. And there are things that we're not going to be able to explain so obviously because we don't know them in the sense that we can prove them. But there we will try to approach them from what we feel. Because based on what we feel is there, that's what we will try to approach them from that point. And he says, of course, for these things, if there will be somebody who will come with the specific answers to us, we will make him our friend. But if not, we will have to keep going by the signs, which means that we are trying to approach this and we are not trying to bring this down to us in order to be able to explain it in our terms. And I think this is the essence of the existence of human beings. That's what we are doing with music, that's what we are doing with philosophy, that's what we should be doing with science, that's what we should be doing with religion, that's what we should be doing in our lives.
How would you ask in Greek, what's up there? What are the Greek words for that? For the question,
well,
what's up there?
There is many ways of asking that, but because the up there means what? Up there means up there is a very, for me, for such kind of question, is a very how can I say cheap way of putting it. What's up there? We mean the sky. What is the sky? We mean that because sky is uranos, is etheras, ethereal. We say ether. What is the ether? What is the ethereal element? What is up there? I don't know what is up there because I don't know what is down here. But what is up there in Greek, I would express it in theon, which means the divine.
So the question in Greek would be?
It would be not what is up there, but for me it would be how can I approach? So, πώς μπορώ να πλησιάσω το θείο. And we have this great word theosis. Theos means God. You have theology, even theory, but anyway, theos is God, and you have this word theosis, which means that we have to become, we have to resemble, we have to become like God. So theosis, this is the word that I would be looking for.
So that is a sort of perfect question to end this conversation. It was really interesting and really fascinating. I'm looking forward to hearing you on stage with your instrument for the first time after, I don't know how many months over here. Thanks very much for being here and enjoy your stay and take care. And I think yamas is something you say in Greek as well.
Yamas, which means to our health. And
okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. And I wish everybody to still keep a bit patient. We are getting out of this soon. And I hope that we can look again at the world in a very beautiful way very, very soon.
Okay, so
thank you.
Yamas, and if I could be able to drink ouzo and not die, I would, but I'm looking forward to seeing you on stage.
Okay,
thank you, man.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Weitere Podcasts vom Hamburger Abendblatt finden Sie auf abendblatt.de/podcast.
Would you just give your house key to criminals? Having your personal information on the internet is like giving a thief the key to your home. They can take everything that's valuable to you anytime. But JoinDeleteMe.com can help you protect yourself. Online data brokers compile information about you and sell it to people who could ruin your life. But JoinDeleteMe.com scours the web, removes the personal information you don't want seen, and reduces the risk of data brokers, scammers, identity thieves, even political enemies getting personal information that could hurt you, your family, or your reputation. You'll get regular reports detailing what they find and remove. And JoinDeleteMe.com isn't just AI. They have real people working to keep your data safe. Keep your private life private with JoinDeleteMe.com. Sign up today and get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to JoinDeleteMe.com/protect. Go to JoinDeleteMe.com/protect. That's JoinDeleteMe.com/PROTECT.